Greetings to you, the great nation of Iran. Every day that passes, new dimensions of this great massacre and the horrific crime of the Islamic Republic in January 2026 are revealed that further highlight the horror of this crime. When you hear the details of these killings in 2026, you constantly ask yourselves, is it possible? Is it possible for a government to be so murderous? But it has been. You wonder how they could trample on so many principles of human rights and international law and kill so many people in their thousands so easily. The reality is that the Islamic Republic has committed this crime, shifting the boundaries of crime in the world. They have done things in this great massacre that are simply unimaginable. One of the members of the repressive forces active during the events of January the 18th and the 19th, who says he was acting under duress by the Islamic Republic and that he was detained for a while, has provided us with horrific details about the massacre in Tehran, which more clearly shows the extent of these killings, from the distribution of weapons among thugs by the IRGC's intelligence, to shooting the wounded dead, using refrigerated trucks from a food distribution company to transport corpses, and removing earrings and necklaces from our innocent little girls who were killed. This individual, a 40-year-old self-employed resident of Tehran, was one of those who, on the two nights of Thursday, January the 8th and Friday, January the 9th, was present in the streets of Tehran as a part of the repressive apparatus. This person recounts his experience of those bloody January nights in Tehran as a horrific experience, emphasizing that his hands were not stained with the blood of the victims, and provides details about the methods of equipping the repressive forces and their operations in Tehran. He states that on the evening of Wednesday, January the 17th, when he returned home from work, he received a call from his security contact instructing him to report to the IRGC Vali Asr barracks by 10 a.m. on Thursday. The Vali Asr barracks is the command center of the IRGC in Greater Tehran, responsible for repression in Tehran and two major suburbs. The IRGC's intelligence department is also stationed at this barracks and other buildings in the vicinity, and coordinates the dispatch of security forces and plainclothes agents to various neighborhoods in Tehran from this point. This individual mentions that his security contact did not disclose the reasons for his summons, but he guessed it might be related to Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi's call for demonstration for January the 18th and the 19th. He says that on Thursday morning, when he went to the Vali Asr barracks, he saw a large number of people there, some of whom he had previously seen at similar events. He mentioned that apart from a few familiar faces, there were two types of people present. Some in civilian clothing resembling office workers or traders, likely acting under duress by the IRGC like himself, and others who looked like thugs, and it was those who behaved most violently. He states that about 50 or 60 of them were taken to a hall and were given an intelligence briefing about what they called the potential for chaos in the upcoming two nights, emphasizing that they wanted them to assist alongside other operational forces in controlling the disturbances. Note that they use the term disturbances and chaos, never willing to say protests or protesters, and refer to them as chaos makers, just to justify the repression in their own minds. This individual, who participated in the repression and provided us with the information he had, said that after this briefing, as some individuals had no prior experience with weapons, they conducted a short training on weapon use and, based on an individual's experience with weapons, distributed pre-prepared permits for their use. They provided Kalashnikovs, handguns and other firearms and ammunition from the armories. This individual states that according to this procedure, the permit he received was a temporary mission order printed on the letterhead of the IRGC Tehran headquarters, signed by the Deputy Operations Commander of Greater Tehran, based at the Imam Ali headquarters. He said he picked up a weapon from the armory and was ordered to go to the Basij resistance district of Ghods in Region 5 of Tehran, known as Jannatabad, at 5 p.m. to begin his duties there. Based on various media reports and evidence on the ground that we have, in addition to the IRGC, Basijis and the Special Forces, plainclothes fighters, unofficial forces and thugs were also employed in the repression on January the 18th and the 19th. According to this individual, many Basiji and plainclothes forces gathered in the Jannatabad area in western Tehran, where it took several hours to divide the individuals among neighborhoods, and they designated specific geographical areas in the streets to each group. Some were paired up on motorcycles, while some others set out in 4x4s or some other vehicles. He says he got into a vehicle with another person and they established themselves in a designated area before 8 p.m. on Thursday, January the 18th. He said that in the repression on Thursday and Friday nights, new blueprints were employed in the massacre of the people that had not been used in previous repressions and protests. He described two of these blueprints and methods which they used in the Great January Crime, which the government has labelled as hunting leaders and death ambush. According to this individual, some elite IRGC intelligence agents infiltrated the crowds of protesters and seemingly went along with them, but their main task was to identify those who were leading, shouting slogans, who were more active. He said that after identifying these highly active individuals during protests, the intelligence forces, in suitably dark streets where the lights were out, would shoot them from a close distance in the back or would contact snipers stationed on surrounding rooftops and instruct them to target the ones they'd picked. They would provide descriptions of their appearance and would instruct them to shoot them. This was the main task of the snipers, to target individuals they thought were the most active during the protests, or if someone was injured and another person went over to help, the sniper would shoot both the injured person and the helper. According to this individual, another common pattern observed during these 2 nights of killings was to direct the panicked crowd, frightened by gunfire, towards dead-end streets or areas controlled by security forces who were waiting there to hunt down civilians. This guy said that this pattern was especially repeated on Friday night in the area of Tehran where he was present. Note that he says that this method was used multiple times to kill protesters, with the goal being the killing of the maximum number of individuals involved in the protests. This person stated that no one among the protesters was meant to be arrested, and many were caught in ambushes and killed. I myself heard an account from a citizen who said he witnessed the incident from their apartment window. He said that a number of protesters headed towards their street, which was unfortunately a dead end, when the shooting began, and the suppressive forces caught up with them. He said they opened fire and killed them all, then collected all the bodies, and then a truck came and took all these bodies away. Afterwards, they just washed the area and left.
دارن تیر جنگی میزنن دارن تیر جنگی میزنن
Information that has reached Iran International shows that in an emergency meeting attended by Tehran's so-called medical officials held on the morning of January the 19th, one high-ranking official announced that the sum total of the figures from medical centers in Tehran until the morning of Friday, January the 19th, indicates that at least 1,800 people were killed during the suppression of the National Revolution on the evening of January 18th, just in Tehran. Note that this was only in Tehran and only on Thursday night, while the killings escalated on Friday and the following days. The account of this individual who participated in the suppression provides a more horrifying image of the methods of operation used against people by the suppressive forces. He recounts that on one of the streets in southern Tehran, he arrived at the scene of an injured protester who had lost a lot of blood, and the injured person pleaded, saying, "I have a small child, please don't shoot." The man told the injured individual to pretend to be dead so they wouldn't finish him off. But he said he witnessed that a few minutes later a motorcycle pulled up by the side of this injured guy, and an officer kicked him to confirm he was alive and then shot him dead in the head from a close range. Killing the injured has been one of the greatest crimes committed by the Islamic Republic's suppressive forces during the suppression of the people's protests in the National Revolution. Nowhere in the world do they kill the wounded. They didn't kill them during the Iran-Iraq war. But look how angry Khamenei and his agents were with the people of Iran, that they even killed our wounded and showed no mercy. We have multiple accounts, not just one, not just 2 or 10, multiple accounts of our wounded being killed in the streets and within hospitals on their beds. This morning I was talking with one of my dear colleagues who said that when there are protests anywhere in the world, the forces try to disperse the protesters by various means, either with their truncheons or at most tear gas. But these people killed, and after shooting they didn't show mercy even to the wounded or to those who went to help the wounded. My colleague remarked, how shameless must an officer be that after shooting and injuring someone, they wouldn't even allow the wounded to be taken away. They shot the wounded and also shot the one who came to help. They have really outdone every criminal. You, the Islamic Republic, see what criminals you have trained that show no mercy even to our dear wounded, no to those who went to save them. Many of our dear ones were killed while trying to help. I've heard an account from a father describing how his son was killed. He said he went to the place his son was shot, and he heard that when his son was injured, a fellow citizen opened the door of his house and tried to pull him inside. But Khamenei's suppressors arrived and dragged his injured son back out into the street and finished him off. The actions you took, Islamic Republic, would make any other criminal in the world spit in your face and say, "We didn't even do what you did in the name of crime." However, the most horrifying part of this individual's account relates to children. This individual believes that based on his estimates regarding children who had been killed in a couple of areas in southern Tehran, at least around 200 children were killed during those 2 nights of suppression in Tehran alone. He said that, like the protests in 2021, they used refrigerated ice cream trucks to transport and move the bodies of the deceased protesters. He said he himself helped load the bodies. But the issue was not just killing protesters. Apparently, the killing officers were also allowed to take the belongings of the deceased for themselves, like gold and money, viewing them as battle spoils. This individual who participated in the suppression recounts that while they were loading the bodies into a refrigerated truck, he saw a suppressor, before loading the body of a 9 or 10-year-old girl who was killed, pull her necklace and earrings off and put them in his pocket. He confirms that as far as he had witnessed, the burning of banks and mosques was also carried out by the agents themselves. He said they evacuated those places as much as they could before burning them down. He said he personally witnessed one case where they were ordered to remove valuable items from the mosque before it was set ablaze, and they later blamed the protesters. He says that Iraqi Hashd al-Sha'bi forces were definitely present on the night of the 18th in the area of Sadeghieh in Tehran. He said that the majority of the forces were from the Revolutionary Guards, plainclothes agents, Basijis, and the security forces of the Islamic Republic. But he said that on the first night in Sadeghieh, he also saw a number of Iraqi Hashd al-Sha'bi forces. Another point he made was that the special forces of the police were suppressing the demonstrations, but for this level of killing, they brought in the Revolutionary Guards and the Basijis. He said he was in an area in southern Tehran until the early hours of Saturday, January the 20th, but he didn't kill anyone and was just firing shots in the air. He said before noon on Saturday, he returned his weapon to the garrison and they told him that his help was no longer needed. However, he said that according to what he heard from those in contact with him, the amount of money demanded from the families of the victims for retrieving their loved ones' bodies was calculated differently based on their area of residence and the extent of damage in that area. He said they couldn't take money for the bullets from everybody, but from whichever family they could, they took money based on the amount of damage done in the area where the individual was killed and how much they could extort from them. The account of this officer shows that the bloody suppression of protests on the 18th and 19th was not merely a street-level security reaction, but a well-planned military operation designed for a widespread slaughter of protesters.